Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Schlage number 35-270 S134. Just trying to get the camera to focus on our key blank here. Not a lot of luck in that regard. Try it one more time. There we go. For a moment there. So this is a 35-270. This is a typical key blank, and we're going to define what typical means. This is an S134 keyway, and on these Everest 29 blanks, yeah, they do have S134 stamped down there. Side bit undercut milling on the side. That's for the patented check pin that you're going to have with Everest. And that's what makes Everest Everest, the check pin. So Schlage, since I don't know when the classic keyways were introduced. I think Schlage got their start in about 1921, or the first patent. I don't know when the C keyway was introduced, the 1920s or 30s, whatever it was. But those 7 keyways, the C, E, CE, F, EF, G, FG, those are ubiquitous. Most absolutely the C, possibly the most common or second most common keyway ever of all time. The Kwikset 1176 would be the other one. The Everest, well, back in the late 80s, the Primus was patented by a gentleman who also patented the ASA twin. I think it was the ASA twin, it was the ASA. And they're very similar in the fact that they have side pins, or finger pins as it's called in Schlage. There's a sidebar in the ASA. In the Primus there is as well. And they work slightly differently, each of them do, but the principle is the same. The cuts on the side of the key need to elevate, and in Schlage's case, rotate that finger pin so that it will allow the shear line to be satisfied. The Everest, obviously the Primus, and then the Everest, was an evolution away from the single shear line that you'd have in a classic or conventional cylinder, where it's just the cuts on the key that will satisfy that shear line at the top of the cylinder. Well, now there's a shear line here that needs to be satisfied. It's actually down at the bottom of the cylinder. And with Primus as well, there's a shear line in the side of the cylinder where the sidebar resides. The Everest, and this, we know that this is Everest because of the little mountain thing that's here. We know it's 29 because of the shape of this key, and I'll discuss that in a moment, is a natural evolution out of the C through G or FG keyways, those 7 keyways. And it's an evolution that's beneficial for 2 reasons. Number one, it's certainly more secure, period. Picking open a lock with a Schlage C keyway could be a relatively easy endeavor, even by someone with no prior experience. The check pin is going to change that sort of concept, so it's more secure. Number 2, it's an evolution away from being able to have a key cut just anywhere. The local giant, lumberyard, home improvement center, the local cobbler. They're not going to stock Everest 29 blanks. Now, the Everest 29, this S family of keyways, is not restricted or protected. You can buy these. I can sell these to you. I can cut your keys for you. This client here, most definitely just a private individual. This is probably going to an apartment building. Who knows, who knows why they're buying these blanks. They obviously have locks that require these blanks. But they're not restricted or protected, or they are without obstacles in place that prevent open distribution. Schlage most absolutely have products that do fill the need, the security need, where you just can't call up and order this key blank. There are restricted parts of Everest This happens to be the open, the C in the S family, the S in the Everest 29. So why should you use this? It's because it's more secure, number one. And not only physically, but access to the key blank is less convenient. It would take more of a dedicated effort to get one of your keys copied. So this is the 35270. I'll define the key blank for you in a moment. The couple of dimensions, the blade height, 0.341 blade height. The length of the blade from the shoulder stop to where the blade starts to fall, I'd say we're about 1.017. 1.017 is where that is. Okay, this is a blank. There are no cuts here. The side bit cutting is going to be uniform for all of the Everest 29, regardless of the profile of the keyway. The S134, you have a different keyway. Let's switch to the screen view now, and we will take a closer look at all of the supporting documentation. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Here is the key blank that we are looking at. Let's take a look at the images that we have uploaded. That's the profile of the blank from, if the thumb side is up, when you're holding it in your right hand. That's the back side, showing the S134. And that's the opposite side. These ward cuts, or these millings on the key blank, make it an S134. I don't know that it changes on the backside at all, depending on the keyway, but we'll look at that at a moment. This backside might be the same for all Everest 29, but these ward cuts, or this ward milling that's here, makes it the S134. So let's click on the link to the manufacturer's page. Let's copy this part number before we do that. 35270. Let's first look at the cylinders and key blanks quick reference guide. That's here. The Everest 29 is going to be down here in the middle, right in the middle. The original Everest, which is a 1990s product, does not feature that hole that's prepped down here. I don't know why they did that, other than for distinctability, marketing purposes. There is even some language that says, don't worry, this key is stronger than the original key ever was, kind of thing. So if you have that hole near the bow of the blank, you've got an Everest 29. Now 35270 specifically means it's the standard front for the S family, which means it's going to have the embossed logo that's here. Okay, the Everest logo, mountain, patent number, the Schlage logo. The back of all, except the 35272, is blank. That's nice. It's a large bow. You've got plenty of room to stamp or engrave something onto that should you want to. They can do a control key, obviously, as well. They can do plain both sides. And according to this, it says do not duplicate when you order the 35272. Okay. You can have do not duplicate on your keys as well when you specify a 35268. If you want it to say do not duplicate, you can order that. The only thing I wish that Schlage did was offer it without the stamping for the keyway. That makes it very visually obvious what keyway is needed. It would be nice to have it without that possibility. If you really wanted to go so far to prevent someone from knowing your keyway, I would put this on the grinder and take that away. If you were, and the reason I say that, it would then require someone with some knowledge of and we're jumping to the next important part of this, jumping to the multiplex structure, and then literally analyzing what the broaching and the cylinder plug looks like compared to the key that you have. And as we study these, the back side of this blank, it does appear that the only change on the word milling is on the thumb side. The back side appears to be identical on all of them. Appears to be identical. I have no way to know that for sure, but that's my belief. So, if you wanted to keep it your own little secret, you could grind that information off right there. So this is the multiplex structure. When I talked earlier about C through FG or G keyway, it's these cylinders right here. So there are 2, 4, 6, 8. There are 10 keyways in this system in the Everest 29S family of keyways. Why are there 10 keyways? Well, it's obviously to give diversity in what key blanks, what keyways are possible, but it's also for locksmithing purposes. It allows you to, within a single family of keyways, grow a very large system. Without getting stuck in the woods on a technical explanation, on any one of these individual keyways, there are only 4,096 theoretical possible keys. Well, what if you had 18,000 keyways, 18,000 locks that you needed, a uniform key for? You could take 4,096, 4,096. So you could grab 5 of these. You'd probably need 6 or more after the losses for keys that you couldn't cut. You wouldn't cut a key that's 22222, or you wouldn't cut a key that's 918252. So you would throw those keys away. But the point of the multiplex structure is to be able to build a very large system, and then on those keyways that are incompatible with each other, all of these here, meaning this key won't go in here, the S145 won't go in here, but the S100 blank will indeed pass all 6 of these down here. So if you needed a special master key, like an engineering key, you could cut that on the multi-section blank. To dumb that down a bit, or to put it more in context of how I encourage people to consider using a multiplex family, is simply this. You have a home, and you have a garage. The landscaper comes once a week. He needs to get into the garage. I would suggest that you give him the S125. Okay, fairly unusual, or maybe S235. I don't recall having sold that keyway. You put the S235 on the garage. You put the S234 on the house. These keys won't even enter each lock. You walk around with the S230 key blank that's cut to pass both of these. So the landscaper has the S235, and if you were to grind off that information here, it'll be less easy to determine what it is, so that you're preventing, not that landscapers are going to cut keys, they wouldn't. I'm just saying, this is an example. The point is, your key blank, the S230 blank, will pass both locks. You won't have any S234 key blanks unless you wanted to give someone access to the house only that couldn't enter the garage. It's a really easy way to be able to just segregate security at no additional charge. It's not going to cost, you got to buy extra key blanks, but it's not a big deal. So that's how the smart person, in my opinion, can leverage the technology that's there in a multiplex family. Okay. If you specifically wanted a lock in this application, like you might have a shed and you want no one to go in the shed except you would put that shed on an S345, and then you'd walk around with the S000 all section blank. No other key will enter this except the S000 or the S345. That same key will operate, in our example, the house, the garage, and the shed. You don't want to walk around with all section blanks unless you need to, because the reason they pass these other key blanks, if you study it, they've literally milled away a substantial additional amount of material from the key blank. They have thinned it out. That's not considered best practice to use an all section blank just for the sake of having it. You don't want that at all. nor do you want to cut keys on all section blanks for clients, because if I did have that system I talked about earlier with 18,000 doors, I guarantee you that this all section blank is going to work in doors that it wasn't meant to work in. If you have a change key in an S134 system, 4096, those same biddings are duplicated here, 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 and here. That means that the S000 cut to that whatever change key in this part of the system will also work in that same bidding in the other parts of the system. So you don't want to cut anything on an all section blank unless it's intentionally required to do so. Here's our old familiar family of 7 right here. Got some Primus here, the original Primus keyways. Now where Primus gets fancy is in the side bit milling that's here. The finger pins that are here is what really differentiate. Well, this is going to be a Everest Primus, an Everest keyway with a Primus technology on the side, these cuts. And you'll know a Primus key if you see one, because it'll have these funny cuts on the side. Okay. Now let's look at another resource, and it's right here. The Schlage Everest full-size cylinder service manual. This is the history of Everest. This is everything you ever needed to know about Everest and Everest 29. Everest 29 is just an evolution. I forget the year that was put into play, but it's a natural evolution of the Everest platform. Okay. It's all discussed here. You can read that. The check pin is referred to here. That little hole down there, there's a pin that resides in there that this ledge inside of the keyway lifts. So I'll leave this to you to read, but this is what lifts the check pin. You can do restricted keyways in Everest 29. That is no problem at all, where you're going to need a letter of authorization to get duplicate keys made, or duplicate blanks. Here's how the check pin works. That's without the key blank. That's when the key blank is inserted, because that portion of the key lifts the check pin, solving this shear line. Okay, so in this lock there are 2 shear lines. The one that's here, then the one that's here. Very interesting. The rest of the manual, I'll just scroll through quickly to point out to you anything important. You can cut these on a blue punch. They have information here about doing it. Keying it is pretty much the same. You just have to be mindful that there's a check pin inside of there, that it's going to fall out unless you're mindful of that. It's just a spring in the check pin. You put it right back in. This is your depth and spacing data if you needed to know how to cut this material. Shows you the center-to-center cuts on the keys, what the root depths are from the bottom of the blank to the bottom of the cut. If you're using a blitz machine, what code to use to originate keys. Part numbers for bottom pins, master, and top or driver pins. Information on cutting it on the blue punch from A1. Not A1, it's ProLock, forgive me, A1. I wish they were still around. It's important to know that the S145, that some of these Everest really require an upgraded jaw to get it to sit correctly. So if you're not sure if you can do it, read this quickly. Information on the blanks that we had discussed earlier. This is the C family of Everest. The Everest 29 is the S family, the evolved version of it, just new keyways. And why is Schlage evolving their product line? Well, there's not a lot of money in continuing to sell the good old C keyway, because everybody and their uncle has locks that they're supplying in the C keyway. That does Schlage no good when they can't capitalize on the property of the profile of the keyway itself. That's why they evolve it. It's the bottom line. You know, just to put it into context this way, why is the keyway important? Well, in a 5-pin system, in a 2-step 5-pin system, if it's master keyed, the magic number is 1024. In a master keyed system, you can only generate theoretically 1024 keys, different key cuts. Now you're going to realistically generate some number well below that. You know, I don't know. I'd have to reread how that math is determined, but let's say 800 keys you can actually generate. So that means 1 out of 800 locks is going to work the same key. That's just fact when you have this C keyway. Well, if you evolve it to an S keyway, where there are not a lot of S keyways out there, while the math is still the same, even though it's a 6-pin system, which that number is going to be 4096, 1 out of every 4096 will theoretically work. If you have your key and you go to 4097, one of those is going to work. That 4097th lock is guaranteed to work, mathematically. But when you don't have a key blank, or the key blank or the keyway itself is so rare that you don't encounter these, you have a substantially smaller amount of reason to be concerned over random keys working your random locks. Plus, with that check pin, it makes it more secure in today's environment of picking and impressioning and 3D printing and bumping. Okay, let's wrap up this video on camera. So I would most certainly suggest that you, if you're putting in Schlage locks, think about what keyway you need or would like or would be best served by. You're not going to get Everest in every single lock, I don't believe, but you can certainly get it in all their commercial locks, and is a way to really know pretty securely that if you give this key to someone and they give it back to you, that they've probably not duplicated it. That's not the case with the C or E keyway. While it's not protected and you don't know that absolutely, I can't tell you anyone in town that you can walk in and just get one of these cut. I would be surprised if locksmiths even cut them in smaller areas. The name Schlage is synonymous with several things. Very good quality commercial hardware, residential hardware, exceptional inventory. Practically the entire product line is stocked and ready to ship relatively quick. Very unusual that there's a factory order for something unless it's an unusual variant. You've got a lock going onto a 4-inch thick door and you're biasing the lock from the center line over, so the spindles, the screws, the thumb turn, the cylinder all have to be made special for that application. Things like that are going to be factory order, but many other components are simply on the shelf ready to ship. Exceptional technical support, that's absolutely for sure. Any questions on the Schlage 35-270 and an S134 keyway or any other Schlage product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.